Enhance are one of my favourite developers of all time because they keep producing some of my favourite games of all time, including and not limited to Res, Humanity, and Tetris Effect Connected, which the latter of which is probably my favourite puzzle game of all time. And they're doing the audiovisual synesthesia treatment again for Lumines Arise. You could argue this is coming home because this is something Lumines has been dabbling with since its PSP original. If you've never played Lumines before, you'll be dropping blocks of two different types or colours of blocks from the top of the screen to create squares of a single type of colour or block. These will need to be in 2x2 squares, but if you structure the blocks carefully, you can make them bigger and bigger and bigger. And those 2x2 squares aren't exclusive, they kind of get chopped up. So if you have 2 on top of 2 on top of 2, that's 6 blocks, but that creates 2 different 2x2 squares inside it, and that's how points are gained. There's a timeline that sweeps across the playing area, and whenever it hits the blocks that you've connected into 2x2 squares, it generates points from them and removes them from the playing field. And so what you'll be doing is working out to the beat of the music, because that's how the timeline goes across the screen, when best to drop down your blocks, where to place them, and can you then create a combo and cascade of repeatedly scoring multiple blocks on top of each other. The bigger the block, the more the points, and you can get 3x3s, 4x4s, 5x5s, but where you'll be exploring that most is in the new burst mechanic that's very similar to the burst mechanic that you'd get in Tetris Effect, but does something slightly different. In Lumines Arise, when your timeline reaches 100% meter, but you can trigger this as soon as it crosses 50%, it just won't last for very long, you can then get 5 sweeps of going across the screen, building up a massive block of the same type of colour. And as you do this, depending on how you structure it, it will then jettison other blocks of the other colour out of the playing area to somewhere else, so that you can just keep making something bigger and bigger and bigger to get a huge burst score. This is great because it racks up loads and loads of points, but it also then means the other colour is busy building up a massive block elsewhere for when burst ends, so that you can, in theory, clear an awful lot of the screen. Burst is very helpful if you're running into trouble, because in some ways, Lumines Arise, you are your own difficulty meter. So if you slam down blocks really, really quickly, then you're going to run into trouble quickly if you aren't able to keep up with yourself. Yes, there's a BPM meter. Yes, some tracks run faster than others and will drop down blocks quicker than others. But if you're playing on the easier modes in this game, which I have to say I have done throughout my entire gameplay experience, you can mitigate your own skill issue by running at your own pace to some degree. There's also some additional accessibility settings for Lumines Arise in the menus that allow you to trigger when a block starts to drop, which I think, although takes away a certain element of skill on it, then turns it into an odd high score challenge, which is a totally different mode, it feels like, itself. And you can turn on a fail state recovery option, which means that if you fail in journey mode, which I'll get onto in a second, you don't go all the way back to the beginning of the 4 or 5 song run that you're trying to get through. You just restart from the current song that you'd got up to, and it clears the board. And that's crucial because then it means that you can still make it to the end of each song, and it reduces down that difficulty cliff edge if you're struggling. Lumines Arise is a beautiful game to look at, and what I really appreciate about this is that each song, which is composed by Hydelic, who's back on excellent musical duties for Enhance again, love his soundtracks and will pick this up when it comes out. The songs go through multiple stages, as do the visuals in the stage themselves, and you'll kind of move between different phases that will change either the speed of the song or maybe the visuals in the song and the background, as well as sometimes the blocks as well. And it's telling this story over the course of 35 stages of how we're all connected in this world, and that might be through food, it might be through partying, it might be through stuck in traffic, it might be going on a holiday to the beach. All of these different environments are pulled out and then expressed through either the blocks, the background, the burst mechanics that then change up what's going on in the background too. And whenever you are exploding blocks out, that then reacts differently depending on how well you're doing. And so the visual feedback gets bigger and bolder and more vibrant and visceral the bigger the score that you get. And this is reaving back in that synesthesia style that Enhanced do so incredibly well, and really perfected with Tetris Effect Connected, and have just kind of doubled down again in Lumines Arise. Some stages are like top tier phenomenal, others are a little bit more subtle, but all of them feel distinctive, and I keep going back into them on theatre mode, which, spoiler alert, if you're seeing someone going absolutely nuts and scoring high scores, it's likely me watching it back on theatre mode just going ooh. And I recommend that as a good tip actually to work out how to do better at Lumines, is by watching theatre mode play. The other thing that you can do outside of the 35 story journey mode, which is broken up into different phases that then unlock all of the different stages for you to then build playlists and play how you want afterwards, you can then go into mission mode. And mission mode tells you the basics of Lumines in a really clear and distinctive way. And it starts off a little bit like a mini puzzle, so that you can then work out how to score well and set up combos for yourself. And then it will move off into more advanced challenges where you have specific time limits or certain score thresholds to reach, and only a certain amount of blocks maybe to do it. And so it really teaches you the mechanics of doing well in Lumines and using the burst meter and burst mechanic to the best of your ability. Once you've then got your skills honed, it's well worth dipping into multiplayer, which you can play against AI or another player locally, or take it online into ranked or casual matches. And you will get kind of a ranked rating as you play against other players. And as you're doing all of this, and throughout all of the different modes, you're collecting Lumi, which you can then trade into the shop to then unlock either cool little heads or emojis or emotions that can then be attached to your Lumi, your personal one, and you can kind of customize that as well as your background banner as you go. The online multiplayer works well when you can get connected, and it's the only bug that I've come across in Lumines Arise, except for one crash than the very first time that I played this game. The only other problem I've had is I'm constantly unable to connect to the online servers for this game. And on an occasion, it will then just like let me on for a little while, and then I struggle to actually get into a room. And it's a shame, because I'd really like to sample the online offering and be beaten within 2 inches of my life with this game, because I am atrociously slow and terrible at it. But I want to experience playing up against really competent humans to see what they do differently so that I can learn from them. Although the AI certainly does give me a schooling, and there's 10 different levels of difficulty that you can go up. Now, after 5 hours of play, I'm just about battling a level 2 AI, so I've got a long, long way to go to hit that higher skill ceiling. But I'm relishing the challenge and absolutely loving dipping back in and trying out new ways of trying to be better at Lumines. And the tools in the missions and the challenges help you get there alongside the gallery mode as well. There are very few games that I think embrace emotion in an audiovisual capacity. And whilst I appreciate maybe some people might be a little bit put off with the EDM heavy soundtrack, because historically Lumines has gone through all kinds of different genres, what I would say is that this game commits to the bit. And what I mean by that is that the notion of everyone and humanity all being connected and we need to love ourselves and each other more can come off incredibly corny and saccharine. And it is, but it is fully embraced by Lumines Arise. And because it takes itself so seriously with that embracement, it pulls it off. And so I don't cringe over like the really wholesome lyrics and like the euphoric key changes and things like that go on. It really pulls you in, and because it's committed to it, it pulls it off with aplomb. And I have to say that whilst Tetris Effect Connected, I think, can't be beat because it holds such a special place in my heart, Lumines Arise does an absolutely phenomenal job as a follow-up that scratches the same itch as Tetris Effect and now gives me a totally new experience to play and embrace and enjoy. I'm a huge fan of this game, and I really hope it does well, because these types of real visceral experiences are the types of things that gaming is made for, and I can't wait to just be back in it. And I can't wait to unpack my VR and get stuck into it as well, because this in VR, I imagine, is going to be an absolute trip, because so much of the visuals kind of push out into the eyes and into the screen. You can tell this has been built for VR, because it's got that kind of, when you go to see a 3D movie and you can spot the 3D movie effects on a 2D screen, there's a lot of that going on here. Lumines Arise is out now. Go get it!